Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. Hope you're all doing well. Today's topic, we're going to be going through Odoo's implementation methodology from kickoff to go live. How to make sure your Odoo ERP implementation is successful. Now, I am going to be talking here today about our way of implementing here at Odoo with our own implementation team, but do feel free to copy. A successful implementation is successful for everyone. To start with, my name is Misbah Al-Khadim. I'm a senior business advisor with Odoo Middle East. I've been here in Odoo for the past 5 years, not planning to leave them anytime soon. To cut straight to the chase, the first thing we would want to understand here is in the world of ERP implementations in the past, let's say 25, 30 years, there is always failed implementations. And these failed implementations, they have their reasons. The reasons can be divided into three main categories. It's either people, process, or the technology itself. So personally, I would say people plays a huge role, such as, for example, the sponsors or the executive sponsorship of the project isn't there. There's a resistance to change from the end users. There isn't an internal project team handling the ERP implementation. Many people think an ERP implementation is a one-sided game or a one-sided project. It's actually similar to a marriage. You need both sides working together, as well as there would be sometimes a misalignment between the business units as well as the IT team within the organization. When it comes to process and project management failures, we're talking here in regards to there was a lack of requirement gathering. Whoever is implementing didn't really understand the scope. Undefined or weak business processes. So maybe the person or the company who's implementing really understands the requirements, but these requirements aren't correct, mainly because the client himself or the business itself doesn't have a proper defined processes. Another issue that happens during implementation was what you call scope creep. Just a little bit more, just one more adjustment, let's do this customization, and it keeps pushing the implementation longer and longer and longer. As well as the data that you want to migrate. If the data is unclean, like they say, garbage in, garbage out. The best ERPs won't be able to operate and give you the right results if you input the wrong data. Additionally, timelines are important. In many instances, we're in Q4 right now, mid of November. A lot of my own clients are asking to go live in January 1st. And the first thing we tell them is, no. We're not going to rush the implementation. We're not going to go into this head first with an unrealistic timeline. Usually, when someone wants to go live in Jan 1st with a full customized, trained on ERP, you need to be coming to us sometime in probably June. And then you would have a good chance of going live successfully in January. Lastly, it's the technology itself. Now, yes, we're focusing here on Odoo, but even Odoo is an ERP. There are cases where clients ask to customize everything. Just customize, customize, customize. Rather than trying to adapt to the system, they want the system to completely adapt to them, where the goal is something in the middle. The business would adapt to the system, but the system also tries to adapt to the business. There's integration failures. This is something Odoo, I would say, doesn't really suffer from if you are utilizing Odoo as a single solution. Because Odoo's scope is very big, we cater to everything from retail for F&B, retail or POS for F&B, POS for retail, e-commerce, inventory, procurement, HR, marketing, manufacturing. The list goes on. We cover everything. Now, in some instances, clients come to us and says, hey, I want to integrate Shopify to Odoo. Sure, but that's a failure point. That's a possible failure point. Shopify changes something about their API or their system, breaks the integration. You don't have that issue when you're utilizing Odoo only. Then there's also the post-go live support. This is something for us at Odoo is very critical. We go through something called hypercare. I'll explain in more detail later on about it. So essentially, we're talking about people, process, and technology. And as I said earlier, in my experience, it's usually the people that cause the majority of the problems, but then the process follows right after. So how do we mitigate these risks here at Odoo? Again, I'm specifically talking about the way we implement and the way we work. It might be different from other traditional ERP implementations or even IT companies in the markets. We go through a unique implementation methodology that we've developed over years. It's just based on our experience. So we have three key principles if we want to summarize it quickly. First, we like to keep it as standard as possible. Now, the reason for that is it just makes it quicker to adapt to, and we go through the customization if needed. We like to deliver as fast as possible. So once we go as standard as possible, we are able to deliver as fast as possible by decreasing complexity. Lastly, because we went standard, because we're going fast, we're able to keep it affordable. Your budget for an ERP implementation should first cater towards your needs first, then your wants later. Start with what you need, use it, try it, then improve it as time goes on. There is no need for you to go ahead and try to customize and get all the bells and whistles from day one. It often ends up with, let's say, a not so great experience for the end users or the implementer and so on and so forth. All right. So the way we go about our implementation is we start with the project discovery. So essentially, we're able to first start with a discovery where we do a few sessions. Let's call it pre-sales. That would usually includes me. I go through the first discovery meeting, do a few demos, sometimes a high-level POC, in order to make sure that when we're estimating for the project, we're estimating it correctly. I'll go through the project section and go through more detail later on. We're going to start with a discovery. But for the projects section, this is where we go through the implementation of the solution, then the data transfer, training, and go live. Now, nothing new under the sun here. This is typical. But here's where we start doing things different. Our discovery starts with what we call a gap analysis or a design phase. The goal of it is I, as Odoo, will not commit towards any project implementation without being 110% sure that I am able to deliver. I also don't want you to commit with me without being 110% sure of the outcome of the system. In many instances, the problem is that the supplier or the vendor is able to deliver, but the customer or the client doesn't know what he wants. So this is where we essentially first validate that, yes, Odoo can support from the first initial requirements. We identify the risks that you have within your organization that needs to be mitigated, so such as, for example, broken processes, weak spots, loopholes that we need to mitigate with an ERP. We clarify the scope. We try to understand, okay, this is what's going to be implemented. This isn't covered in the implementation, and so on and so forth, which also helps initiate the change management. So when we're doing our gap analysis, what happens essentially is we conduct workshops, and those workshops are being done with the end users. So their input is being valued. We also onboard the client to our implementation methodology. So once we start implementation, they already know what we're going to go through. And lastly, we estimate, we plan in terms of timelines, in terms of cost, and we divide the cost in multiple ways. We divide it by module. So for example, you're spending $10,000 to implement the inventory module for your 50 warehouses. We're spending $30,000 on your HR system for a complete HRMS and so on. We also divide it by departments. So sometimes departments are using multiple modules. We also divide it by what we are delivering. So for example, 20% of your budget is going to training, 30% of your budget is going through implementation, 20% of your budget is going to migration, and so on and so forth. So when you want to make a decision and move ahead with Odoo, you have the complete understanding of where your budget is going in each and every way. All right. To that, the gap analysis, in short, is essentially our consultants who have years of experience, who have worked on your industry multiple times over, are essentially conducting these workshops with each and every department. With every department, they will essentially ask 3 questions. How do you do things today? Well, today I'm using SAP, today I'm using Oracle, today I'm using Excel, pen and paper, and so on. Great. What are the biggest challenges you're facing today? Well, the biggest challenge I'm facing today is reporting or following up on data or notifications and so on and so forth. All right, what are your future plans? Well, our future plans, we want to automate this, we want to open a second company, we want to subcontract, we're trying to make our manufacturing more efficient and so on and so forth. All of that information goes back with the consultant. They provide a proof of concept. So they will go back to Odoo, they will show you the end results, and they will say, okay, procurement, this is how your workflow is going to be on Odoo. All right, sales, all right, inventory, all right, finance, and so on and so forth. So that each and every department is giving off their sign off that this is what they want. There is no ifs and buts. There is no CRs. There is no surprises. They know what they're going to get. The output of that, of course, is we're designing the solution, not just for now, but for the future, for it to be scalable. And that's why we ask, what are your future plans? Because maybe something in the future cannot be fulfilled by Odoo. So we could go ahead and say, look, if your plan is to unify everything under one umbrella, well, Odoo can't do this. So maybe you should look for another solution. We're perfectly comfortable saying that. What are the benefits so what tools out of Odoo or features out of Odoo that will help you solve the problems or the bottlenecks that you have? Then we also highlight there are some customizations that get requested by our clients where we say, yes, we should do them, or no, please drop them. We don't recommend you pay us money to implement something that's not going to benefit you. And then, of course, the timeline and the budget of the projects. This is an extremely important step, the gap analysis or the design phase. We at Odoo almost never go through an implementation of any sort of complexity without a design phase. It's almost set in stone for us. It just ensures that there is minimal risk on us and there's a minimal risk on the client. Now, the methodology during the gap is we're trying to reduce the cost, we're trying to find the fastest way to deploy and align with best practices. Sometimes the client realizes that maybe their process is broken and they need to fix it before we implement it on Odoo. For example, a very fun example I like to always give is in many organizations, they say the CEO is the one who approves POs. I want it on the system. Before we used to do it with like an Excel sheet or a Word document and so on, like a template. But now because we have a system, we want a button that the CEO says approved. What if the CEO goes on leave? What if the CEO, God forbid, falls sick? What if you have an emergency purchase that you require to fulfill a sale and the CEO is nowhere to be found, or he's flying, going all the way to the US and it's a 17-hour flight. So what, your business halts for 17 hours? So this is where we say, okay, we believe that this requirement you're giving me, you're going to pay me for it. I don't want to implement it. It's not going to benefit you. The end goal for us at Odoo is that once you're on Odoo, you stay on Odoo, which is why we look towards making sure that whatever solution we're implementing is actually benefiting you and is scalable. I don't want you in 3 years be sitting with another ERP provider and saying, hey, we used Odoo, it was great, but we realized that it doesn't scale with us, or there are things that we need that Odoo doesn't fulfill. That's why we look long term. Now, the outputs of this gap analysis, and I'm spending a lot of time on the gap analysis because trust me, 99% of the projects end up successful just because of this step. And again, keep something in mind. A gap analysis doesn't mean proceed. A gap analysis is almost a go, no-go step. Sometimes the client realizes that, okay, Odoo is a great solution, but maybe this workflow or that workflow is better on another software. We are very comfortable telling a client that, hey, this specific workflow that you want to customize on Odoo, there is a ready-made off-the-shelf solution that does it better than us, and we can integrate with it. Makes sense. It's less cost on you. Yes, there is an integration, which is a failure point, so that's a risk, but it's less cost. And that solution is probably giving you something more than we can give you without a customization. So we are perfectly comfortable telling clients that we require to pivot the project or even segment it. So the gap analysis that we go through, we provide a complete schematic to your implementation, breaking down every requirement, the solution we agreed upon, is it standard versus development, the cost of that requirement by department, by module, and by need. So it ensures that once the management wants to make a decision, they can make an educated decision because they have that schematic in hand. Now, for the project implementation stage, this is essentially, you've crossed the first big hump, which is essentially challenging the client with the solutions or with their requirements, making sure that you're providing them the best practice. The project and implementation stage is also tricky. Just because you did a very successful, very good, well-documented, everyone's happy about the design phase or the gap analysis, the project and implementation is where you need to go ahead and start focusing. Now, for us at Odoo, our implementation teams operate as a unit. Now, essentially, there's always a project director, of course. There's a solutions architect, a business analyst, experts, developers, and then the account manager. That's me. So in Odoo, whenever you start an implementation or you start implementing with us, the account manager that you start with is the account manager you end with. Meaning they're with you during the design phase, they're with you during the implementation, they're with you post go live as well. So even in future renewals, that same person is there. Now, the project director has a helicopter view. He's overseeing the budget. He's overseeing the budget in terms of hours you purchased. He's overseeing the progress, deadlines being met, the quality of work. They enter a few key meetings, including steerco meetings, which I'll explain in a moment. The solutions architect is the one who is essentially a functional consultant. They are the ones who are looking at your process and trying to optimize it. The business analyst spends the most time with the client. They are very client-facing. They are discussing their requirements. They are working on the solutions, training the team, and so on and so forth. Experts, well, experts come into the picture whenever they're needed. So instead of having the business analyst try to analyze something that he's not experienced in and it takes him 10 hours, my expert can do it in 2, which means less cost on the client, better quality usually. Lastly, the developer is whenever we're doing customizations and we're doing developments. So our own team will go ahead, and the way we develop and customize, we're always looking long term. We want something scalable. So we don't customize for the sake of customization. Developments and customization come in when needed. I'm going to keep emphasizing that point, when needed, which is very important. So what I said earlier is essentially an ERP implementation is not like ordering a furniture from IKEA, right? Where someone knocks on your door, they open, come inside, start assembling the furniture and leave, and you're just standing there. ERP implementations are closer to a marriage. We're working together. We need your input as much as you need ours. We cannot implement a business process if you don't know the business process. We cannot migrate your data if the data you provide us is not clean or is not ready. We cannot train you if you're not available for the training. We cannot validate the workflows we've done or the implementation we've done if you don't do your testing and give us your validation, which is why it's important to plan, be involved, go have proper availability and time, both mentally and in terms of actual time for the projects. Always revise and go through the requirements. Sometimes once you implement a certain workflow, you realize there are certain features in the second workflow or the second phase that you don't need, and that reduces the cost even further. And change management. We have implemented thousands of ERP implementations in the region here in the Dubai office. So we did develop a sense of how to manage change management, and there are many types of them that you go through. But it is something that you also as a client need to be focusing on. Essentially, implementing an ERP is not just for management, but it's also for the end users. It's meant to make their lives easier, which makes the management's lives easier because they get their reports and they have their control. So the methodology that we go through, once we are done with the gap analysis, we have a solid scope, we agreed on the phasing, we start to go into a granular planning, meaning that's when we start to put dates, ink to the paper, and we start saying, all right, first week, we're going to do this. Second week, we're going to do that. By the third week, you, Mr. Client, need to have these things done for me so that by the fourth week, we're doing that. And then we are doing your testing and so on and so forth. So during the gap analysis, we have identified, for example, some developments. So we get working on those. We have the developers go work on them so we can do their testing, while the client in parallel is working on the data to prepare to migrate it. We're agreeing on cutoff dates, parallel runs, making sure that we're ready to go live on the desired dates. Now, once the developments are done, we go ahead and configure the database for us, but this is where we're also training you on those developments we've done or customizations so that you're fully aware of the workflows you're going to be using day to day. Lastly, right before the go live, the training and the UATs are happening, and UAT, if you don't know, is user acceptance testing. This is where the client tells me, yes, the workflows, the system is working as expected. I tested my corner cases. I'm happy with it. I know how to use it, and sign off. It's done. That workflow is running perfectly, and we're ready to go live. So here, we at Odoo cannot do our jobs and make sure that it's running correctly if you don't do your testing and training. And again, testing essentially doesn't talk about technical testing, but functional testing. Do discounts apply the way you want them to apply? Or maybe you have a different type of loyalty program that you want it to be adjusted, and so on and so forth. And that's when we go to the go live. And the go live, this is where our consultants go into a hypercare mode. They're literally on standby, waiting for you to pick up the phone and say, hey, I need help. This ensures that we keep all the support within a short span of time to make sure that the client feels independent. One thing I want to highlight here. The training and the UAT here at Odoo is a bit different. In our methodology, we don't just train you on how to use Odoo. We like to train you on how to configure things in Odoo. And that, of course, depends on your appetite to learn. We're not going to try to teach, let's say, the CFO how to create a new company on Odoo, because as you know, creating new companies on Odoo is free. So if you want to create a new company or a subsidiary, you don't need to come back to us as Odoo to implement it for you. You can do it on your own. You want to adjust the discounts, you want to create a new promotion program, you want to add different people to approve on POs, you want to create a new department in HR or a new salary structure, whatever it is. The way we train is meant to get you to become independent. You do not require to come back to us for any changes in the future. Now, you do want to come back to us to do changes, door is open, we'll estimate, and we go through the same process all over again. It can be sometimes considered as a new project. Now, the steerco meetings I mentioned a few moments ago are extremely important. Steerco meetings are essentially steering committees. We are meant to make sure that everyone involved knows what is going on. Meaning, depending on the complexity of the project and the speeds, the project manager or the project director from Odoo's side is meeting with the SPOC, the person who is responsible for the project from your side as a client. Now, the PM and the SPOC are aligning, seeing, okay, things are going well. The PM says, hey, Mr. SPOC, there's a delay from, for example, your procurement team or your HR team with handing the files. The SPOC says, hey, Mr. PM, there's that development that took 3 times to be fixed before it started working, which really delayed the testing. So both of them take feedback from each other and go adjust so that they make sure the project is going smoothly. However, then there is the sponsors and the account manager. So these are the people who initiated the entire project, and they sit all the way on top, right? Because they're not knee deep in the implementation details, but they just want to know that, hey, are we meeting the major milestones? Everything's going smoothly, everyone's happy, and so on and so forth. It's extremely important that the sponsor is aware of where the implementation is going. Because often what happens is that the sponsor signs, pays, and then 3 months later comes in and goes like, why aren't we live? Where is Odoo? We paid for it. It should be live by now. And well, he doesn't know that, for example, the PM and the SPOC agreed that the team needs more training, so they need more time, so they agreed to push the go live by a couple of months. He's not aware. To him is that the initial timeline was 3 months, for example, but it was reviewed with the acceptance of both parties to be 4 months or 5 months or 6 months and so on and so forth. Now, as I said, for the way we train, the business analyst trains the SPOC and trains the key users. We don't like to sit and train each and every end user. This ensures that we are putting all the knowledge into a few key people in your organization to make sure that they become your reference within your organization. As I said, we want to reduce your reliance on us. That is beneficial for you because it means anytime you need something, you already have the resource in-house, and that's beneficial for us because it helps us focus on other projects as well. It becomes unfeasible if my consultants are always busy with existing clients. We like to keep you independent. That key user is then responsible training the departments. So we train the CFO. Of course, the accountants are there, but if they still have questions, they keep going back to the CFO and it improves his knowledge as well. To that, these are some of our clients that we've been working with or even implemented in the past years. We actually do need to update this sheet. There are many more, especially this year. It's been a hell of a year working with our clientele. I'll take any questions if you have. Feel free, if you're interested in working with us, discovering Odoo, you can scan the QR code and book a time. But I'm here for questions. That's pretty much it. I don't want to take too much of your time today. Let me check. Anytime. I'm glad you enjoyed it. Are there any advice for a new learning partner? Start creating a niche. Odoo is a massive piece of software. I would say it would be important for you to go after a niche. Try to find a weak spot in the market and start working on that. And it costs, and we want to hit the cost and a specific product with cost. That's a bit of a functional question. I would raise a support ticket. Our support team will be more than happy to assist you in that. How long does a gap analysis usually take? The fastest gap analysis I've ever seen done took 3 weeks, but it highly depends on the client. Mainly because the gap analysis really depends on the availability of the client, right? So for example, my consultants want to go ahead and meet with the team, with your team, and your team is unavailable. So they say, hey, come to us in 2 weeks. Well, that delays the entire gap analysis for a couple of weeks. Depending on the size of the scope, our team usually requires around a week to prepare the POCs. And then presenting them again goes back to you. Are you available for us to present and take in your feedback so we make sure that the solution meets your expectations? A design phase, the best way I like to describe the design phase essentially is, I'm a contractor. You came to me, you said, hey, I want to build my dream house. I'll tell you, great. Where's your blueprint? Where's your schematics? You go like, I don't have any. Like, how do you want me to build your house if you don't have a blueprint? So that's where I direct you to an architect or an interior designer to go ahead and design your house. So you go there, you pay you pay for the gap analysis or the design. They design it for you, and then they go ahead and come back. They tell you, okay, there is your design, and that's where we start essentially pricing it. Now, for that design to be successful, that's where we need your input, right? You need to choose the curtains, the marble, the doors, and so on and so forth. I can't choose the doors for you. I do need you to be there for me to design it correctly. Getting a few rapid questions here. How do you handle change management? Look, change management is something that is long-term. First things first, it starts literally before you signed up with a client. Again, I'm going to keep flip-flopping between essentially speaking in the terms of a client and speaking in the terms of someone who's implementing, as us at Odoo. So for us at Odoo, change management, mainly the way we solved it is it starts early on with the account manager, with the very first meetings introducing Odoo. In many instances, in that time, when the end user is looking at the solution, they look at it excitingly because this system is going to make their lives easier. Instead of you staying till 9 and 10 and 11 p.m. working on a report manually, Odoo will create it for you so you can leave back to your kids early. During the gap analysis, because their input is there, they feel like they're part of the process. They feel like they own the success of that implementation. Like it ensures that because their input, because they're being heard and the end solution is what they want, it really helps the change management. Then there's the training, then there's the go live. So essentially employees start to take ownership of that implementation. And that's what helps with change management. Going into a project and trying to force down a system down people's throat doesn't really work. They need to feel like they are a part of that implementation process. What hosting do you recommend if I want to host it locally, as such as very expensive? I honestly can't help you there. I don't know. As far as I know, SH is not that expensive, to be honest, but then I don't have a really clear idea about the pricing for hosting. How to become an Odoo implementer, where to start. You can reach out to our partnership and alliance team. So literally go on odoo.com. There's a small button that tells you become a partner. I believe if I actually do this, you are able to go ahead and reach out. So if you want to meet an advisor, or even if you would like to become a partner. I mean, you can even literally Google it, Odoo become a partner. We have a good website built on Odoo. Yep, there you go. So you can go ahead, schedule a call, you'll meet someone, and they'll guide you through it. All right. If we create a custom fields in Odoo today, when will migrate it to new version of the data present? Then will those data present in the custom field also migrated? If you're talking about Studio, no. So let me clarify the question. If we create a custom fields in Odoo today, when we migrate it to a new version, then will those data present in the custom field also get migrated or not? If you're using Studio, no, they won't migrate. You need to export the data, upgrade the database, re-input, re-customize the fields, and then import it with there. Because Studio is what we call a low-code, no-code. Essentially, it's a tool that allows you to customize without the need for a developer. But it's designed for startups. It's designed for small businesses. If you want something long-term, you should develop it. You should code it right into the system. Use agile methodology. Does Odoo consider? Yep, we operate in agile methodology. That's the way we operate. Is the gap analysis paid? Yep, the gap analysis is paid just like an architect is paid for his design. The document that is the output of the document is your ownership. You are free to take that document and go to any ERP implementer and tell him, these are my SOPs, these are my requirements, this is what I want. The only part that you won't be useful for you then is the pricing part, but we're not charging you for the pricing part really. So it's time and effort from the consultants who have experience in the industry to consult you on the best practices, build the POCs, provide them, and then go through the best solutions. Can you give us a summary difference of Odoo 18 to 19? Wow. There is a release notes. So just type Odoo 19 release notes. You'll have 17 pages of new things on Odoo 19. Do you have some issue with implementation or hours finished? Who can help someone with? All right. I don't know who you're implementing with. Reach out to your account manager and they should support. Anytime you have an implementation issue, reach out to your account manager. He's your best friend. I'm going to answer a few last questions. The manager version upgradation for a customer who is using Odoo. So Odoo upgrades. Odoo upgrades are easy to do if you're on standard, meaning if you don't have a lot of developments. If you do, the person who did the development, whether it's us as Odoo or whether the partner, needs to update that code and assist you in that upgrade. Upgrades on Odoo are free for standard Odoo. Customizations, on the other hand, we have our methodology to keep the cost really low for our upgrades. That's why for us, the projects we implemented, we have a very high percentage of upgrades with our clientele. Again, because we keep it standard, because we don't customize for the sake of customization, we are thinking long-term. We are ensuring that long-term it's easy to upgrade. There are cases with ERP implementations where someone comes to wants to upgrade, but realizes that the cost of upgrading is equal to the implementation. So it feels like a re-implementation happening. I'm very interested in becoming an Odoo implementer. Would you please guide me? Yep, already sent you there. Just look it up on Google. You'll find Become a Partner with Odoo. Third party, don't have expecting Odoo reputation. Why do Odoo is sharing business with third party who don't have? Okay. Look, when it comes to our partners, we have a very wide array of partners, everything from one-man shows to 5,000 employee partners. And we need that because that's because the client base we have. We have clients who are small businesses with 1-2 employees, and we have clients who are 50 employees, 100, 50,000, 10,000, 5,000, and so on. So we need that range of partner sizes to match the client sizes. But at the end of the day, do feel free to reach out to us. We have our own implementation team as well. Again, sometimes partners are the best fit for your implementation. Sometimes we are the best fit for your implementation. It all comes back to what you are looking for. Can the content be translated into other languages? I'm presuming you're asking about if Odoo supports multiple languages, maybe? And yes, we, I think, support more than 80 to 90 languages. So the system itself does get translated. I guess with that, we can go ahead and call it a day. As I promised, I didn't want to take too much of your time. Essentially, just have an idea of what we are able to do here on Odoo. Make sure that we have all the information covered. I hope you enjoyed today's session. Feel free to reach out if there's anything I can assist with. Thank you very much and have a great rest of the day.
Thank you.